Hey guys, I wanted to do a test video to see if the my camera lens is picking up in focus, and also to see if the lighting is sufficient here. If I need to get some additional lighting, it seems a little dim, but I'm just going to do a short video on a thought that came up today about living an empowered life. I had a conversation with someone in my relative who I'm somewhat close with, at least I'm trying to maintain a relationship with them. They sent me a link to a news article, and I know that it's her way of trying to communicate and share and share something that's important in her life, or something she's thinking about or cares about. And for me, it's a little difficult to read, a lot of news articles, because right now they tend, well, not just right now, but a lot of the time, they seem to be really focused on some pretty negative things, or just their perspective isn't at all empowering or optimistic or action-oriented about what can you do to make a positive impact or do something good in this world. It's really just reporting on, stuff that happened. It's like, here, this happened, that you can do absolutely nothing about because it's past, it's over. And so anyway, so she sent me an article about protest, and then a reporter being attacked, and then the person being brought in for questioning, and the person who was brought in for questioning saying there wasn't a protest and nobody was attacked, and then another reporter saying that they saw somebody getting attacked, and it's like who knows what happened? I wasn't there, right? It's like a he said, she said. And then on top of that, it's also related to COVID and wearing masks and all the regulations that New York City and New York State are imposing. So it's a really controversial topic, a heated topic, and on top of that, it's also highly questionable, people's motives. And so I don't necessarily trust it just because it's written. If it's in the media, there's a lot of reasons why people put things in the media, why journalists and papers publish things. And some of that, a large part of that, is advertisers, right? The thing that I think we could all agree on is that beauty magazines are not like really trying to change the world. They are a vehicle for ads. So Maybelline and Louis Vuitton and who knows, Chanel, all these different people are placing ads in Cosmo, Vogue, etc. And it basically, instead of just having a circular, right, or what would you call it? Oh, that's bad lighting. A flyer of ads, I don't want to say pretend, but for now, let me just be totally candid. They pretend they have something meaningful to say. They interview some people and they write some editorials, and they throw some stuff together and they say, okay, it's a magazine. So we're going to write on interesting topics. Maybe it's like all about different ways to highlight your eyes and different eyeliner, mascara, stuff for your eyebrows, whatever, right? So they come up with a topic. They say, this is something people are interested in. So they're going to read this article and they're going to learn something new, and that's great. A lot of people are interested in that. All the best. So if you want to boil it down to like what the motivation is, like the truth, if we can talk about such lofty things, if we can pretend that there's a way to know the truth. They're not saying, I have this dying, like burning desire to write this article about eyebrows. I have to get this off my chest. I must share it for the world to know how important this is. And so I'm going to publish a publication. I'm going to make a magazine. It's going to be life-changing. It's going to be amazing. It's just going to be what I need to express, right? Maybe they're not thinking life-changing, but they're thinking like, I have to do this. And so in order to fund this publication and to get these articles out and to get this information out there, they have to sell ads because they're trying to fund their paper. And they get enough ads, they're able to print, they pay the printers, they circulate it, they sell copies, they make profit, great. Shkoyach. That's not what they're doing. Nobody is saying we want to, express ourselves and write this article about skin cream or lipstick or whatever. Like, let's be honest, the advertisers need to get the ads out there. They throw in some articles to cushion the thing, and they create a magazine that people are interested in. I'm not criticizing the idea, but I'm trying to make the point that we need to understand what came first, right? The chicken or the egg. Like, what is the purpose of that magazine, or nowadays most newspapers and news websites? Is it that they have a burning desire to share information, and then the ads are just secondary? Like, we have to sell them just to pay our, printers and our publication and our staff? Or is it the ads are hugely profitable, and so that's the number one purpose, and secondary to that is the articles that have to be interesting and engaging in order to get viewers or to get readers or to get customers. So I realized at a certain point, I don't know when, my 20s, that like clearly beauty magazines are just a vehicle for advertisers, right? Like Chanel and Louis Vuitton are paying thousands of dollars to these papers to advertise, and then the papers come up with fun stories and interesting, op-eds and whatever, biopics. So lifestyle pieces, I mean. So, okay, so that's one thing. But now we're talking about newspapers that you would think have journalistic integrity and want to do, in-depth investigative journalism and really tell the truth, tell the public what's really going on, and get a story out there, because people need to know. People need to be informed. This is something that has to be out there. Okay, so now so my point that I'm getting to is that I think newspapers have become just like beauty magazines, in the sense that they're really just to serve the advertisers and make profit, and the real people who are making money and getting that huge salaries are the people who do advertising sales, and the writers and editors are making small salaries because they're secondary to the purpose. Okay, so now I'm going to switch gears a bit and talk about COVID, as much as I hate to do it. What's new that we don't know? That there are more cases. People are being reported every day. The numbers are being reported. This number of cases, this number of cases, this number of cases. I haven't heard recently about the numbers. I mean, I just don't know them personally. But I assume that the media is also reporting if there are any additional fatalities. May there be none, and please God, let this disease go away and no one has to die from it. So they're reporting these numbers. Okay, so my video started out with the idea of living an empowered life. Why are you doing what you're doing? What are you spending your time and energy and thoughts and words and actions with? What are you actually doing in this world? With your time and your faculties and your skills, your abilities, your limited time, like, how are you using that? And so if you're reading the news to be informed, to know about what's going on out there, to be a concerned citizen, shkoyach, great, God bless. If the news is publishing these articles because they have to tell the story, again, great, more power to you. If you're filling the news media, whether it's newspapers or print or videos, online, TV, whatever, with updates on numbers, more cases are rising, I'm not sure it serves either of those two purposes. I'm not sure that I'm becoming a more intelligent and informed citizen. I can't say that I'm really learning something new. I'm getting more information, but there's a big difference between information and knowledge, right, and wisdom. I can't say I've really improved as a person because I now know there's more cases. Yes, knowing there's more cases, it's important to know. We have to take precautions. We have to act responsibly, conduct ourselves safely, all of the above. The number of cases, that's not informing my life in a way that I can do something about it, right? Like, I can wear a mask, I can social distance, I can work from home, I can sanitize, I can wash my hands, I can do safe things. Regardless of what the numbers are, the one thing we need to know is cases are rising. Yes, that is a useful fact. Sorry, the lighting is still getting weird. And that will inform my actions that I just listed, the kinds of things we want to do to stay safe. But whether that number is 5 new cases, 50 new cases, 500 new cases, that I take issue with. I think the media is striving to keep people on alert, to get people scared, to keep them fearful, to get more viewers. A scared populace is glued to their TV. And when they get more viewers and their numbers are higher, they sell more ads and they get more advertising dollars. So let's be honest here, the news will not report good news because it doesn't scare people. It's not going to get a lot of viewers. And once in a while, they'll have like a nice, lifestyle piece of something positive, but that's pretty rare. And they gauge what works, right? What gets more viewers, what gets people to tune in. And it's like the cliffhangers that drive me crazy. Like, you log into your email or you hear a commercial for the nightly news, like tune in at 8 o'clock to find out what you should be scared of in your kitchen cabinet. It's like, okay, if you actually cared about what's going on in my kitchen cabinet, there might be some chemical or poison that I'm not aware of, you wouldn't make me wait 4 hours until the 8 o'clock news to tell me. You would say, alert, this thing is bad for you, whatever it is, this chemical, this ingredient, and that's it. But they have to fill a whole time slot, a half hour or an hour. They have to find something to talk about. So they just they drag it on and they drag it out. And I don't want to say they're making stuff up because that's a bold statement. And I can't possibly know whether or not they are. My opinion, my gut feeling is that yes, absolutely. They just throw whatever they can on there and try to make it sound as like possibly true as possible. But they do say things many times that are not provable, like what may happen in 4 months. By December, numbers may be, cases might rise too. So that is not a fact. That is not true. That is not news. That is speculation. And it is fear-mongering. And it also could be that by December, this completely is not dangerous anymore. All the new cases that are coming up are symptomless. People are not having severe reactions. It could be that people have it and they don't even know. And that's actually happening now. And there are people testing positive, or people who test for antibodies who had it and never knew they had it. And so I would love to see statistics. I would love to see a report, maybe, a group of 1,000 people being interviewed. Or I would actually, let me speak in real wishful thinking. I would love to know, out of all the cases, every single person that has tested positive for the virus or the antibodies, meaning they had it and no longer have it, I would like to know how many, what is the percentage that had symptoms? And what is the percentage that had severe symptoms? What is the percentage that had mild symptoms? What is the percentage that had to be hospitalized? Out of that percentage of severe symptoms or people who had to be hospitalized, how many were treated with X, Y, and Z drug? How many had successful treatments? How many had to be ventilated? How many had successful results from that ventilation, from being on ventilators? What we're not seeing is a scientific approach or a statistical approach where we're comparing apples to apples. What we are seeing is just random numbers that are comparing apples to oranges, comparing things in March to now, comparing numbers, but not addressing a baseline. You need to have the common, denominator. If you want to talk about percentages of people who have COVID right now, today, higher numbers, cases are rising, that has to be a percentage of something, right? You can't just say there's 100 people who tested positive and not have that compared to anything. Compared to 100 people, I mean 100% of your test group tested positive, that's pretty intense. Or is that of 100 million, right? And then the percentage is clearly like really low. So that's what a percentage is, right? Statistics compare one thing to another. So right now we can say X number of cases are out there in the world compared to a certain percentage, right? The world population, or just out of the number of people who are tested. So now, if we're saying, just for ease of numbers, I'm going to use numbers like 100, 1,000, or 10,000 just to make it round numbers. If you're saying 100 people tested positive out of 1,000, is that 1,000? Is that the population of a city, a country, or a small town? Or is that just the people who were tested? So follow me here. If you have 100 people testing positive out of 1,000 people who were tested, that's 10%. How many, like what matters is how many people are being tested compared to the population. So, and I'm going to bring this back to the March to September comparison, which a lot of people are drawing, which I think is a false comparison. If you are comparing, testing 1,000 people, and let me use a good number. Let's say 100,000 is the population of that city. So 1,000 out of 100,000 can be also reduced as 1 out of 100, right? So that's 1%. So that means you're testing 1% of the population. Out of 1% of the population, 10% tested positive. That's important to know because in March, we may have been testing 1,000th of 1% of the population. So if the number of people being tested is so far smaller in March, or let me phrase that a little bit more straightforward. If the number of people being tested in September is so far greater, it's so much more than the people being tested in March, there's a very good reason to believe more people will be testing positive, that the percentage will be higher. So in March, let's say our population, the US population, 1% of people had COVID, or 2% or 3%. I think it turned out that the CDC came out with numbers finally after retracting all the false numbers they put out, or guesses, or whatever fake news they were putting out. They eventually retracted and said it was something like 1% or less than 1% of people were actually getting it. If that's the case, and now they're saying, oh my gosh, 5% of people have it, or 10% of people have it, you can only compare those numbers if it went from the same percentage of people being tested. I wish there was an easy way to describe this. It's just not an easy thing when you're talking about large numbers of people and math. I mean, who likes math, right? Most people aren't really good at it. I mean, I like math, and it's still hard to convey this idea. I might have to come up with some visuals and like hold up paper and say, you know, if 10 people tested positive, and like write on my little note card here. But I hope at least the idea, I'm introducing the concept that very few people, a small percent of people are being tested in March. A greater percent of people are getting tested now. Like I got tested, and I don't even, leave the house. Like I barely go anywhere, right? So I'm acting really safe. I wear a mask when I go in stores. I always have a mask in my coat pocket or in my purse, or if I go in the car, there's one on my dashboard. Like I put it on when I am around people. Most of the time I'm like walking on an empty street and no one's around. So if no one's around, I don't wear a mask. And if I'm more than 6 feet away from people, I don't wear a mask. But in public, in stores, in areas where there's more than, when there's people in my near vicinity, for sure, I have to. It's currently the law. And I definitely don't want to get a ticket. So anyway, the fact that I got tested is like, kind of like a testament to the fact that like people are coming out of the woodwork to get tested. A lot of people are being tested now. The percentage of tests, just the percent of the population that's being tested is a lot higher. So now, clearly, that's not the same number as in March. So anyway, I'm going to stop here because it's almost 20 minutes, and it's a difficult concept. I'm hoping that maybe if people have questions, like specific questions, I can address those, and it may be a little more clear, the concept I'm trying to convey. But the news is stating a lot of absolute numbers, and they're not stating relative numbers, they're not stating percentages, and they're not stating what they're comparing it to. And so statistics that are coming out now in September are a different baseline, like a different denominator, as compared to the statistics and the numbers and the tests that were coming out in March. So two different things. They're comparing apples to oranges. It's a lot of misleading information, and if you have a neighbor or a neighbor's kid or somebody who's really good at math, ask them to explain it to you with a pen and paper and like draw it out. But the fact that cases are rising should not scare anyone. What should scare people is if mortality rates, meaning fatality, people are actually passing away from it, are rising. That is a number we're not hearing, and that's good news, meaning that the numbers aren't rising. And certainly the fatality has decreased tremendously. Another number that's important to know is severity of cases. We are not hearing at all. They're saying cases are rising. They are not at all reporting severity, meaning people are actually sick in bed, who are having horrific, symptoms. They're not reporting people who have symptomless positive tests. So if the whole world had no symptoms, they didn't have to stay home from work, or they weren't sick in bed, they weren't having these, really strong cases where they're like bedridden for 2 weeks, right? Like let's say the entire world got this virus with no symptoms, would we have anything to worry about? If it wasn't severe, if it felt like a cold, or you were sick for one day, and this is if, obviously, clearly I'm not saying this is fact, I'm asking a question. If it was not severe, and the herd immunity kicked in, and we were all fine, or maybe, sick with like cough and sneeze for a day or two, but nothing more than a common cold, would we have anything to worry about? Obviously not. If it was so mild that we could get it and not know, meaning symptomless, or we could get it and it was gone in a day, or it felt like just a cold and we were fine and could still function and go about our days, take care of our families, go to work and do what we needed to do, would we need a vaccine?